On the 30th of May 2024, Care Zimbabwe hosted the Sustainable Business and Supplier Symposium at the Harare International Conference Center. The well-subscribed event focused on the enhancement of sustainable businesses and suppliers in Zimbabwe, with a special focus on ESG principles and localized procurement. ESG stands for Environmental, Social, and Governance Criteria, which refers to a set of standards for a company's behavior used by socially conscious investors to screen potential investments. Speaking at the symposium, Care Zimbabwe Country Director Mr. Patrick Sekana highlighted the significance of such symposiums and the continued efforts by Care to ensure sustainability in Zimbabwe.
So I said, Emmanuel, can you explain to me? It's strange that reporting is a crime, but perpetrating is not. Emmanuel said to me, Patrick, there's something you don't understand. I said, of course, clearly. He said, here in Liberia, we conjugate. I said, Emmanuel, and in my mind I started thinking, conjugate, what's that word? I started thinking about conjugal rights. I said, well, Liberia must be very romantic. You go and steal and you think about conjugal rights. Emmanuel, what do you mean? He was like, no, we conjugate the verb eat. Now, where are you English majors? Anyone? Come on, we don't have English majors here. Or language majors. To conjugate is really to change the form of the verb depending on the person, right? So let's do this. The verb to eat. I eat. You. Come on, let's do it together. I eat. You. You eat. They eat, we eat, she eats, he eats. Okay, that's how the verb changes. Okay, let's try another verb. Walk. Let's try walk. Walking. I walk, you. I'm not hearing you guys. I walk, you, they, we walks. Okay, so I think you get it. So Emmanuel said, we make sure once we have anybody who steals in this part of the world, makes sure he eats. The person, the police eats. The family eats. The workmates eat. We conjugate the word eat. And once we do that, we are sorted. Now, if doing wrong, and this is the point I wanted to make, if doing wrong, but doing it in such a way that you are selfless. If stealing without being greedy, which is an oxymoron, right? Contradictory, made people thrive. How much more if we in the business industry, we the suppliers, we the development partners, and I dare say authorities, if we stopped being greedy, nothing would stop us from achieving what we want to achieve. So greed is the first element that if we are going to be successful in maintaining and exceeding the standards of sustainability, in achieving the standards around those 4 Ps, we have to stop being greedy. We need to conjugate. But this time we are not conjugating the verb to eat. We are conjugating the verb to leave. I leave. Let's go. Together. You what? He leaves. She leaves. We leave. They leave. That has to be the mindset driving sustainability. It shouldn't always just be, I leave. So my name is Patrick Sikana. I am the country director for CARE in Zimbabwe. I've been around for 3 years in Zimbabwe. CARE has been working in Zimbabwe for 31 years, and we continue to work with different stakeholders, government, private sector, and other non-governmental actors. So we have seen in recent years, certainly in the past decade, how climate change has continued to affect populations, whether it's through cyclones or in the current scenario, the drought that we are experiencing is a result of climate change induced effect. So today it's about bringing together business houses, private sector actors, and suppliers, and talking about how can we continue to pursue profits but at the same time protect the planet. How can we be sensitive to the needs of people as well as stand on principle? So those 4 Ps, how do we bring them together so that the profit motives do not end up destroying the environment, which then continues to create a cycle of disasters that we must be responding to. So that is the core of the symposium today. The idea is at the end of it that the actors today will sign what we are calling the Zimbabwe Green Commitment, which is a declaration that we want to be responsible business partners that are not undermining the potential of future generations to draw their livelihoods from the same planet, the same environment. We are wanting to make this as broad as possible. If we could get every business house to sign up, we will. So in the short term, we begin with whoever is currently here. We want to have government authorities backing it up because they play a big role in creating policies that are either suitable for the growth of private sector and the regulation of the environment. So the partnership drive is going to be ongoing. We are very grateful for to our current sponsors. Some of them include the EcoBank, Stanbic, Old Mutual, just to mention a few. There are a number of sponsors for this event today. But the idea is this is about everyone, not just a few, making the commitment. Our role is starting as a convener, which we have done today to bring people together. But we want to continue to be the connector, which is understanding who is doing what and how can they be linked up in order to share lessons, in order to grow the impact. And so our continuous role is connecting the dots, connecting the actors and the different players in the space so that together we create a big enough movement that is not stoppable.
The event was also attended by representatives of several organizations and companies in Zimbabwe who all had contributions in regards to the ESG framework and importance of localized procurement in Zimbabwe.
So when we talk local procurement, we're saying CARE has committed to delivering gender equal, locally led, and globally scaled responses. Local procurement is a concept of sourcing project materials, commodities, and all the supplies that CARE would need from our local vendors, and that's to say within the country. But why local procurement? Because this is part of CARE's locally led strategy, which contributes to CARE's Vision 2030. Local procurement, when we buy locally, is more efficient, and it will not only enable us to reach our program participants at speed and scale, but also contribute to sustaining local communities. You can imagine if we are to buy the things that we want in that local community, what that would do to that community. So not only are we reaching our participants faster, but we are also ensuring that we capacitate that local market.
Some of the companies and organizations represented included Friends of the Environment Trust, Nyaradzo, EcoCash, Zimra, Mukuru, Smedco, Forestry Commission, and many more.
I'm really excited to be here today. I only have 10 minutes to share with you very briefly about sustainable entrepreneurship and the creation or what we call competency development in the sustainability area. Now I want to just start by sharing the dilemma that I had as an entrepreneur who once worked in a corporate that had a high focus on sustainability. When I was in Lafarge was big on sustainability. We had a huge budget for sustainability work. We understood the impact that the size of our organization could have globally if we could just make a difference in each and every country that we operated in. And so our budgets for sustainability were significant to reduce our environmental impacts, to reduce the dust that we sent into the atmosphere, to create decent work for all, to ensure that there is equality, gender equality, you name it, to create inclusive workspaces. We did everything that we believed was necessary in terms of sustainability. We even had a sustainability annual report that we published, which spoke to what we were doing around diversity, around dust emissions, around water pollution, around water conservation, and all those things. And then out of necessity, I became an entrepreneur. Now, here's the dilemma. In entrepreneurship, it's about survival. It's about today. It's about I need money and profitability today. In sustainability, it's about doing things that reduce the social and environmental impacts and all of this for the generations of the future. A lot of it is about the future. Now, how do you find the meeting point between doing business as an entrepreneur and pushing sustainability goals? Now, this is the reason why sustainable entrepreneurship has been hard to drive. Because there's a serious dilemma of objectives. But the biggest thing is there is a serious lack of understanding of what sustainability means and what it can do to an entrepreneur's business.
I will begin with a few interesting statistics that I came across, which resonate with the topic that I'll be discussing this morning. According to Key ESG, it is estimated that 80% of the organizations who are currently implementing ESG integrated strategies will outperform their peers by 25%. And anybody in corporate will know that this is a game changer. If you're going to be outperforming your competitors by 25%, then ESG is definitely the next best thing after sliced bread. Now, Key ESG also reports that 76% of consumers today will in the next decade cease, not slow down, but cease to buy from organizations that are not demonstrating commitment to ESG principles. And I'm just thinking this actually applies to any organization across the spectrum. So our micro and SME sector is not exempt. It means we will be impacted by this. They also say a notable 88% of consumers demonstrate loyalty to ESG strategic organizations. And as a marketer myself, again, this kind of a statistic is not one that I would want anybody to ignore. It also says that by 2026, climate issues will cost suppliers a whopping 1.3 trillion. And I'm just thinking, what will the supply chain look like and what will be the end result downstream as we land our products into the customer space? What will it look like? Then lastly, it says that, you know what? ESG integrated companies actually have lower capital costs according to 50% of investors. And today, 79% of global investment is being decided based on ESG consciousness and ESG integration.
Issues which affect the environment. I think as Zimra, we are also moving away from paper. We want to make sure that all our processes are automated so that we ensure that our digital platforms are used for tax filing, tax payments, and that will also assist us to be more efficient. Then challenges, I think this one is common for most organizations, issue of resources, issue of balancing economic growth with social and environmental responsibilities. I'm sure these are issues which, as a nation, we need to work on together.
It is there. The National Forest Policy acknowledges the existing interlinkages between the forestry sector and other socio-economic sectors, hence our presence here, where we are interfacing with the business to see how we can all play our part. The policy framework is set to create and enhance an enabling environment. I know Patrick was the very first speaker, and he posed that challenge that government has the responsibility of creating an enabling environment. So I'm so happy that my slot to present came much later, because it presented me with two opportunities to make a quick escape if our forest policy doesn't do that, the challenge that is posed to us. But as the conversation unfolded throughout the day, I saw that we actually did a good job, as I will highlight when I give you the policy pillars.
So excited to be here, and from CARE, we want to give you a bit of what we do with what you do with us. So you provide services to us, you provide your goods to us. What are we doing out there? And as my slides come up, I'd like you to ask yourself two quick questions. What are we, when you supply us with, whether it's your borehole drilling, stationery, I don't know what you supply us, EcoCash, Mukuru, what do we do with it? And as you look at that picture, I'd like you to see whether you can see yourself in it. I don't know if there's someone who can see themselves in that. Not as a Zimbabwean, obviously a very excited woman there, enjoying watering her rep in this is Zaka. Now, I'll give a bit of a clarity on what that means, but ask yourself, when you supply us, what do we do with what you give us? We're not a business person, so we're not reselling. So what happens to what you provide to us? What do we do with that service or good that you give us? And I'd like us to remind ourselves of two things about relationships, dating. So you can only date perfectly if you know who you are, not the other person. We spend too much time knowing the other person. The question is, who are we? As CARE, we have a very clear mission in what we do. We save lives, defeat poverty, achieve social justice, and fight for women and girls. So if you haven't seen that phrase somewhere on our billboards, please go look for it and let's move that forward. So that would be the outline of my presentation. Next slide, please. In my other role, I'm also the director of a project called Takunda, which is a $55 million project funded by USA. It has quite a number of roles, Zaka, Chivi, Mutare, and Buhera, you heard about that. But I want us to just think about those numbers. So we are reaching about 301,000 lives. 173 of them are youth. Some of those are women, 114, and 57,000 are adolescent girls. So as you're thinking about what you're giving us and what we are doing with it, think about those people. All right, I'm going to do a quick definitions. Next slide, please. So climate change, and again, we'll struggle with this. Climate change simply refers to a long-term shift in temperatures, weather conditions. That's it. I'm not going to argue. There are people who deny it. There are people who accept it. That's not what we are here. But one of the things we are doing in CARE is really promoting what we call climate smart agriculture. The World Bank has a definition. I'm going to leave it up there for a minute so you can look at it. But I want to just go slightly into the history. Where did all these conversations start? And I don't know whether you all know that in Zimbabwe, there lived a man called, I was going to use my Swahili word and say Mzee, but Sekuru Zephania Firi, who's one of the forerunners in what climate smart agriculture is. And this man says, I plant water as I plant crops. This is not a farm. This is a farm. This farm is not just a grain plantation. It really is a water plantation. And again, we'll come and find you in this presentation. What does this look like for CARE? What are we doing out there with communities? So we are strengthening organic agriculture, better, healthier produce. We are increasing crop diversity and nutrition, a lot more production. We are also looking at sustaining production for farmers in the communities. And we heard a lot about carbon markets, financing, organic certification is an area that we are also trying to figure out what to do with. So again, just trying to find us in this conversation. So now let's start answering our question. So somebody here was contracted by CARE to drill a borehole in, that's Mutare. Next slide, please, sorry. Next slide. I'm sorry. Next one, please. Next one. Thank you. So somebody went out and drilled. That's what we hired you to do. Someone else transferred money to a woman. Somebody else sold us cement. And that cement has now become a dam in Zaka that provides enough water for a community to irrigate and all the livestock, even in this drought, to survive. Somebody else sent money to a woman, to a man, actually in Mutare, and they received that money, $48, that was transferred, worked on a garden, and that garden now is producing enough food for themselves, for their community, and they are selling it to the individuals that they can, making more money, even in this drought. As we think about the engagements and the commitments we work, I'm really hoping that you can think about your role, not in delivering that purchase order, which is probably the commitment we have with you, but really looking at what is it that you're doing beyond that. And as we think about climate change, our sustainability isn't for CARE. Actually, one of the biggest conversations we have as NGOs is, when are we no longer needed? Or when do we change what we do because we've achieved enough? That's our goal. Our goal is to work ourselves out of our jobs, all right, or do something different. But you have a role to make that work.
EcoBank is a Pan-African with presence in 33 African countries. The genesis of this bank is that it didn't start as a business, but it started as a movement that was created to help Africans realize their potential. It was started in West Africa, 1983, when 5 countries came together. After I realized that during that time in West Africa, there were so many international banks, global banks, that were there in that market, but they never served the true interests of the African market. So they mobilized capital and started this bank, this movement, with the idea of building one single bank that will save Africa. So this movement spread from West Africa, into East Africa, Middle Africa, and finally Southern Africa, where we have presence in most of the Southern African countries, Zimbabwe, Malawi, DRC, Zambia, except South Africa. In South Africa, our presence is through our shareholder, which is NetBank. NetBank, South Africa owns 20% of the entire group in Africa. So it didn't make sense for us to have a presence in that particular country. So this movement was entirely to make sure that there's a ranking at the corner of Africa. And that almost was in some point we got 1,200 branches, 20,000 employees, the balance sheet of over 20 million. You hear that all this, I'm not talking about shareholder value. I'm not talking about paying dividends. Because if you look back at the ESG model created on the 4 P's, profit, planet, people, and principle. The urban model for the entire continent. In the other understanding that if we create a better food, we will contribute to a better world. And then profit becomes a consequence of decision. So only now, I think, close to 20 years after inception, the bank is now talking about shareholder value. But prior to that, it was making sure that there is reasonable presence of the bank through its products and services, branch network, digital platforms, to everyone in Africa across Africa. And that is the nature. So we take ESG very seriously as a bank. And we believe that in fostering a diverse and equitable inclusive organization is not only the right thing to do, but it's also essential for driving strong environmental, social, and governance performance. When we embrace diversity and create a culture of belonging, we unlock innovation, mitigate risk, and better serve the unique needs of our customers and communities. And from our workforce to our supply network, someone will be here. We are dedicated to creating equal opportunities for people of all backgrounds, whether it's gender, race, or any other classification that we may do. And innovate around sustainable products that are like global. So the idea is to integrate our friends in global financial arrangement. So that's our purpose. And we believe we are on track to achieve that. So you see that ESG is a way of life for us rather than a part of our strategy. It then guides our decision making, the markets in which we operate, the products that we deliver, and how we deliver them to the market. The world is constantly evolving, and to stay relevant, we must change with it. I'm sure you all agree. We know that many other businesses embracing new initiatives, not always this, and usually needs to come from the top bottom. I think my sister did a fantastic job there. Yes, without leadership, then it cascades down. Without leadership, any efforts to drive this strategy in the future. Stakeholders, suppliers, company employees, investors, like yourself, they've had to refocus to make sure that we design sustainable policies that address sustainability and equality issues and provide transparency to these initiatives. We know that most organizations look at CSR as just an activity or a function. They do once, I think we go in the 5 million check and everyone is looking against you our social media and you believe that you are impacting our process. That's not how it's done when we do. So our creative capacity so that they fend for themselves. The program shared was earlier on by the way, for our intervention starting in 2022 when we did the Boera initiative, where we partnered with K International and supported women groups to the tune of 35,000 women revolving fund basis. It's been a major success, allowing families to create capacity and income to look after themselves, providing value chain supply to local communities. I remember in one of the videos, the ladies came together and started a beef slaughter program where they would buy beef slaughtered, sell it to the local community. Creating products that will sustain families. The consequent income is being channeled into other initiatives. And let's that program was called and the EcoBank is partnered a global award at the Bank Awards held last year in London. And EcoBank won the Global Financial Inclusion Award on the basis of this. When we were doing this, we were never doing it for an award. An award came as a consequence of the work that we did. So if you do good, money will always flow. Remember our principle. We start with the principle, profit becomes a consequence of all the principles.
So not only must you have a lawyer, you must have a good lawyer. Right? That's the conversation that we want to have today. My discussion basically is on exploring carbon markets and what they are. I don't want to get into the conversation of what ESG is, how it works, how it is reported and the like, because you have all been educated. And my role at the end of this conversation is to pitch to all of you to find out whether or not the project that I have is ESG compliant. So most of the slides that I have there, we'll just fast forward them for the purposes of lunch. So what's the discussion on? effectively, we want to talk about carbon credits and what they are all about. The objective basically at the end of the day is to ensure or enable you perhaps to consider carbon credits as an investment opportunity that you can all exploit. All of you here have various projects that you've made reference or mention to, but the question is, have you considered registering them as carbon credits? And why do I say that? Whenever you have time today, just Google on the carbon credits transactions that have happened in Zim. The biggest that you see, obviously, is the one for 1.5 billion it's a Dubai company which signed a 1.5 billion USD carbon credits deal with Zimbabwe, which will largely deal with forestry. That is how huge carbon credits have become.
Care Zimbabwe also took the opportunity to launch the Zimbabwe Green Document, which is an initiative focusing on a united effort to drive tangible progress towards a greener, more equitable and resilient Zimbabwe. Through the Zimbabwe Green Document, CARE pledges to provide technical assistance and capacity building support to corporates and SMEs in adopting ESG best practices and sustainable/local procurement. Facilitate multi-stakeholder dialogues and collaborative platforms to foster knowledge sharing and collective action. Mobilize resources for sustainable initiatives and promote local sourcing in its operations as well as those of its partners. Amplify the voices of marginalized communities and ensure that the benefits of the Zimbabwe Green Commitment are equally distributed.
Tinoshanda neke pa mentorship program ndichidzidzisa vana kusona kuti vakwanise kuzviraramira tichipedza urombo. Vandinoshanda navo vamwe vacho vane vakamitiswa vakapuwa vana, saka tinovadzidzisa mubato wemaoko kuti vakwanise kuzviraramira vega. Ndiyo yandiunza pano nekushanda kwatinoita necare tiri mukati menzvimbo yebhoyera. Ndadzidza zvakawanda pandauya pano kuti basa rangu ndichanovandudzao pane zvandinoita. Saka ndinokumbira CARE zvakare kuti pabasa randinoita rekudzidzisa vana vandibatsirawo neimwe mishinari vaiwanze nekukumbira nzvimbo yakati kurei, nekuti nzvimbo yandinenge ndiri vana vakawandisa vanogona kuaffectwa nezvirwere kana flow inotenderera. Saka ndinokumbira kuti ndizowanawo panzvimbo pahombe pekuti ndiitire basa.
Ini ndiri kufara nezvataitwa kuiswa pano necare. Zvinhu zvatifadza CARE inotibetsera pamaprojekti akawanda kumisha kwedu. Ini ndoitawo nezvekutengesa kuhodha nekutengesa nekuchengeta huku. Saka zvinhu zvinofadza. Tadzidza zvakawanda pataya pano, weda kutenda. Vatisponza kuti tizoona zvidzidzo kuti tinotengesa sei business unomukasi unodona sei. Chitendawo necare nemaprojekti ari kuita netakunda nekuramba chisimudzira nzvimbo yekwede kwachivi. Tava vanhu vari nani kudarika dzimwe nzvimbo.
Isu tinoita nezvekupfuya huku, kurima magadheni nekupfuya futi matoki. Toda kutenda zvikuru vecare nerubetsero rwavanotipa. Kazhinji kacho vakatibatsira nemari yekuti titange kuti tisimudzire maprojects edu. Tichitenda futi maorganization mazhinji mamanotibatsira, especially CARE inotibatsira nemalessons. Mukatarisa nzvimbo yatinorarama bhoyera yanga yakatisarira zvakanyanya. Zvinova zvokuti aiwa vanhu vazhinji vadevelopa even mukurarama taurarama upenyu huri nani kana pachikafu. Bhoyera inozikanwa nenzara, asi zvinoizvi takukwanisa kuti tigadzire chikafu chekuti nharaunda yedu iwane chikafu munhu nemunhu achizviitira tisingachadipendi nemadhona. Tainyanya kurarama tichidipenda nemadhona zvakanyanya, but ikwe zvinoizvi takukwanisa kuzvimiririra. Plus ndofarira kuti pakangouya CARE ichipinda netakunda takadzidziswa kuchinja life. Zvinova zvokuti tainyanya kushandisa huni kana tichiita zvekubika, but now vazhinji takushandisa magasi stove.
The Sustainable Business and Supplier Symposium also further provides a call to corporates, government agencies, financial institutions and civil society organizations to join hands and embark on this transformative journey for the benefit of all Zimbabweans.
We are grateful to CARE for this invitation to take part in this symposium, simply because CARE's vision augurs well with our vision and our drive towards manufacturing. CARE has made a very strong position where they've decided to localize all procurements by 2030. That is a position which, when you look at it from industry's point of view and entrepreneurship point of view, you might just think that it's a dream, because you imagine a country where all nationals are consuming locally produced commodities, how that will impact on the downstream industry and on the value chain. So this symposium comes a long way, and it will go a long way in imparting their vision as people who are concentrating on vulnerable communities by empowering industry.
Continental Wire Products, your leading manufacturer of all agricultural, industrial and domestic wire products. Continental Wire Products provides fencing solutions on fix and supply basis, from razor wire, barbed wire, game fencing, diamond mesh fencing, palisade fencing and clearview fencing. We are also manufacturers of wire nails from 1 inch to 6 inches, brick force, asbestos nails, IBR nails, and stockists of plain galvanized wire. You name it, we've got it. Visit us at Corner Oakland and Plymouth Road in Southerton, Harare, or call us on the numbers appearing on your screens. Continental Wire Products, for the best quality wire products.